We're live. Don't know if Chris and Cowabunga's still on, but good evening, my lovelies.
Good evening, everybody.
Dog's licking my belly under bleeding thing. Get
Keep
out.
We are live.
Nobody can tell.
Nobody can tell. She's down below.
He.
He's down below. She's moved. He's moved. So, good evening, everybody, and welcome to what should have been last night, but is now tonight's show. I want to welcome the lovely Mr. Paul Goddard in joining us. Evening, Claire.
Evening,
How
Claire.
are you? Hope everybody is well. Please give a like and a share. Do I give it a couple of minutes? Hey, Jane. Hey, Patricia.
I think you just
So,
said
they're all coming
Hi,
in now.
Claire.
So
Hi, everybody.
evening, everybody.
get started. So, tonight, Paul is going to be talking about his newish venture.
His new
Indeed.
venture in social media.
Yes,
Yes. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. That's true. Yes.
that's true. Evening, Cowabunga. Evening, Gemma. Evening, Anna. Evening, Lorna. Evening, Jane. Hope everybody is well. So, Paul, I'm just going to throw it all to you, and I'm just
Okay.
you're in awe. I'll look for things coming up on bottom, and John will pop them onto the screen as and when needed. So do tell what you've been up to these past few months.
So I've been working as well as my NLP hypnotherapy, the past life regressions. I've got a new YouTube channel which is Paul Goddard Paranormal, and I'm kind of doing it a little bit different to some of the paranormal channels. It's not just going to be ghosts; it's going to be the whole sort of field. So I've got some clips to show you. Most people may have, that have been on my channel might have seen them, but I've also got a little tiny 30-second bit of the corner cupboard and a pot thing that I've filmed today just because I'm interested in mysteries. So I wanted to do this paranormal channel because I've got some paranormal on my original channel, which is Paul Goddard, but because of it got known for the Inspector Wexford, some of the M.R. James stories, it's known more as an eclectic channel, and I thought if I just kept putting paranormal stuff on it all the time, people might start getting a bit sort of fed up there for other things. So I created the paranormal channel just so I could keep that one being nice and eclectic, and everybody that's drawn to paranormal, because I know it's not for everybody, although people that love the paranormal absolutely love it. And I wanted to do something a little bit different with it, because I absolutely love, and I probably will do at some point, put a ghost investigation on there, because I used to do an awful lot of that at one point. But I also wanted to do something a little bit different, and the way I was going to do something slightly different was to kind of go back old school, back to more of the older style ghost programs that used to be on TV, which is more about personal experiences or like cryptid, hidden animals, their experiences, or UFOs. So there's quite a lot in the pipeline to do. But yeah, what I wanted to do was to create it so it gives that sort of atmosphere. Hopefully what I'm going for is when you tell ghost stories around a campfire, so that pleasing shiver, that kind of sort of thing that I want to try and get across in these. But the editing process, because I'm still working on the corner cupboard, and I've found a new date out, which I'm going to have to redo a little bit of it. But the editing process takes absolutely forever, along with doing the work for the clients and everything. But it's a lot of fun, and I want to not overly be over slow at it, and until it gets perfect you could re-edit, and then nothing ever goes out. Just to make it so that I'm pleased with it after, and I'm still in a long process of editing the Carl Morris documentary for my original YouTube, but that's probably going to be about 2 hours long at the end by the time I put everything together, because I did the interview for that online during lockdown, and the interview goes on for about over 3 hours, so there's a lot of footage to get through. So that's something else that's coming, but we're talking about the paranormal at the moment. So and also wanting to collect people's ghost stories. I have done, like you might have seen recently, I interviewed Ken Gerhardt, the cryptozoologist. They're probably just every now and then that I'll do an interview, not too often, but I want to get people's personal stories. So if I ever do like a live, I thought what would be nice is either read out people's personal stories, whether it's to do with UFOs, ghost cryptids, other strange phenomena, or if they're happy to record a little bit on their phones, their mobile phones, and then send it across to me, so that when I'm interviewing people, I can like put in what their experiences were, and I thought it'd just be a nice kind of little fun way to go about it.
That's a really interesting one, that, Paul. That's going to be fantastic. John's just shared your YouTube channel.
Thank you.
A new YouTube channel, the Paul Goddard Paranormal. Evening, Alison. Well, yeah. So, what's been one of the places or one of the things that you've done so far on Paranormal channel, then, Paul?
Well, I think what I can start with, because I've been mentioning the corner cupboard, and there's also a few other places that I've got booked in to do at some point in the future, but I'm just finishing this one off at the moment. I find that the corner cupboard is really interesting because it used stones from the Winchcombe Abbey, which was during the disillusionment of the monasteries. A lot of the stone was used, not all of it, but the buttresses were used, so I got a little bit of that. They got some lovely ghost stories, but I think as well what I want to do with this channel is kind of be almost like a paranormal tourist. I'm sticking locally for now because it's enough. There's enough paranormal around this area to fill the channel up. But also as well, fuel ends up getting quite sort of expensive, and it's a channel which is just starting out at the moment. So I've had some nice kind donations from people. So if anybody that's on here at the moment has donated a huge thank you for that, because it just helps with the travel to these places. But I want to do, because I know that, as you know, booking paranormal venues to do a ghost investigation can be hugely expensive, and I think some people that might have young children now and not able to do that, or for one reason or another can't get out and do these investigations, maybe financially. Sometimes some people just want to go and have a meal in a haunted pub, or go to an area where some panthers have been seen, or go to a UFO hotspot. Or...
See, do you know, I'd love to do that. Same car mine, but I'd love to. But yeah, so have you been to any places yet, Paul, where
anything's happened?
Yeah.
Well, I've been to nothing. I have been in the past and done investigations, caught really interesting EVPs. I have to get the footage from somebody else's camera, but this was you can hear part of the documentary, which is in my original. It's Ghost of Gloucestershire.
Yeah.
I did Ghost of Gloucester, sorry, and I did Poet's Wine Bar. It's now something else completely different. The wonderful Nanny Lynn was on that particular investigation, and there was a point in it where you suddenly hear like the sound. It just sounds like, it's almost like Skittles. There was a sash window nearby, but it was like a shh, bang, and it was really loud. You see me fly. One of the cameras, you see me fly off the seat. Can't explain what that noise was at all, but for this particular one I haven't yet, but then I've been during the daytime filming around people having their lunches and trying to get sort of certain angles in at the moment. I mean, I've kind of tentatively done stuff with the folk museum, but that's going to be coming up at some point in the future. I'm just getting this one down, but I've been where there's been a panther sighting and told my own personal stories. And I did and the words escape my mind at the moment, and I do know it. But the markings that they used to do when I remember it, I'll say to everybody, atropathic markings. That's it. What they used to do in buildings, and I've managed to get some footage from some National Trust places where they've had like scratches in the side of doors, like which I'll show you in a little bit clip from that particular video I put up of what was a demon maze or a witch's trap.
Wow.
But I kind of just gone in with my phone camera, because phone cameras are so good, and just filmed it. I would love to actually get in and properly set up with my nice camera that I was able to do the corner cupboard in Winchcombe with, but you have to go through the National Trust, then you have to get permission. It is so difficult as a small YouTuber to get permission whereas so many people just go in and film. So I think sometimes you just have to go in and go.
Sometimes just go in and film during day, don't you? While you
Yeah,
can't.
that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Nanny Lynn's put, I can't. It was the pig's head. And Leah's put, my favourite was the peacock story, Paul.
Oh yes, yeah. The peacock. That was when we had Bethley Crowler, the pet psychic, and there was a peahen, and it was very interesting. My flapjack. I was going, no, don't bite. So there was the demon maze is actually, and the atropathic markings is at Newark Park. So I've got a little clip of that. So if you want me to share any clips, I've got some.
Yeah, please do. Let us know when you want to put them in and where they're going to click into.
Yeah, so if we were talking about that one, I was going to do the corner cupboard, but we'll show this one. So some of you that have subscribed, and thank you to everybody who's also subscribed to my YouTube channel, might have seen some of this. So this is only part of the video, and this is the atropathic markings. This is what that you can see on the door frame. So let me just try and find it here. That's not our focus in this short video. On the top floor can be seen atropathic markings on the original Tudor door frame. Atropathic is a Greek word meaning to avert or turn away evil. Here we see a burn mark from a candle. There are two theories that I was told. One, if you burn a small part of your building, then the house will remain safe and will not catch fire. Quite possibly there was a belief that the devil or an evil spirit started fires. Once the entity had seen that the building had already been scorched, the evil spirit or devil would leave it alone. 2. The candle would be blessed and the scorch mark left behind from the light will protect the property. Here we can see an M scratched sideways into the door frame. This was to represent the Virgin Mary. The M points are pointing outwards, protecting any evil from entering the bedroom. And finally, although a little harder to see, is either a witch's trap or a demon maze. The trap is meant to represent a net. The witch would fly into the net and become stuck, protecting the bedroom. Or possibly it could be a demon maze. The idea is that the demon would find its way into the maze, but would never be able to leave it. And that's copyright-free music, just in case you're worrying about it at all.
Wow. Well, do you know, in that scorch mark one, it's funny, but it looks like there's a little witch.
Probably there is.
It looks like you can see the hat, you can see her holding something, and you can see the bike. And then in the devil's maze, I mean, all right, I know there's markings and everything, but you can actually see little like devil's faces popping in and out of it, Paul. Which I find interesting when it goes along with what you're saying. Wow.
The scorch marks, you see them particularly in basements of buildings where they would have been like cooking and they're open fires. And first of all, for years and years, it's only been recently they've actually thought, hang on, what is this? And there was somebody experimenting. You had to hold the candle next to the wood for 15 minutes. I think it's a 45-degree angle. Then take it away and then scoop it out and then burn it some more. Originally, people thought they were just like where something was just a bit close to the wood, but you have to hold the candle to the wood for a very long time.
Wow.
But a lot of these beliefs weren't written down, so that's why in this marking, it could be this, it could be that, because it was just, probably what father to son and mother to daughter would pass down through the generations. But it's really good. So whenever I go to these old buildings now, I think it's only markings, and even like other people in National Trust places, I ask if I've got any atropathic markings, and they're like, what?
That's interesting though for everybody, because if everybody's out and about in these places and they see something, if they can take a photo or footage and send it along to you of where they are, where it is. I mean, they could be up in Scotland somewhere and come across these certain markings, or do you know what I mean? It'd be interesting to see.
Indeed.
On historical buildings or heritage buildings or whichever buildings, if there's actually links to the same markings coming up around. That'd be interesting.
And interestingly, again, as in the corner cupboard, there is stone from the dissolution of the monasteries, from the monastery that was there, has been used in a huge part of Newark Park. And they say that ghosts have come of the monks to Newark Park because of the stone. So that goes into stone tape. So doing maybe a documentary in the future about stone tape theory would be
You've got so much to do.
Yeah, that's it. The trouble is I have all these ideas and it's like, okay, put that in the background for now and just focus on this one idea for now.
Yeah, I think, well, you're going to have to, because otherwise you're going to have all these little projects coming off.
Exactly.
And you're going to be like, wow, going to be overwhelmed. But no, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Anything else, Paul? Have you got any other clips you want to share?
Yeah, so we've got some more clips. So it might be nice. And then if I show the corner cupboard I've been talking about, and it's only 30 seconds. I have edited it more than this. And then whilst I was in Winchcombe, there's the museum. There's this strange pot. So I might pull that up straight after, or maybe talk about the corner cupboard, because I've taken Lynn there in the past and I've got to take her back at some point. She likes the place, but then we can talk about the pot after. But I think I'll show the corner cupboard first. Just the 30 seconds, so you can see what a wonderful building it is. In the quaint market town and civic parish of Winchcombe is the historic inn, the Corner Cupboard. It is on the site of the former Winchcombe Abbey. Around 1550, after the dissolution of the monasteries, the stone was used to build a farmhouse. There are 4 large stone buttresses on the outside of the building. However, it wasn't until 1877 that the building became an inn. And to hear the ghost stories, you have to see the full video.
On all these videos over on the Paul Goddard Paranormal on YouTube.
So far, all them which I'm going to show later, or as many as I can show on, except that one, because the corner cupboard's in the process of being edited. But I thought if I just get the very first 30 seconds of what I've put together and pull it out, then it just gives people a little idea of what's coming. But it's great, the corner cupboard, because it's got good accessible for wheelchairs in there, and they're just such a friendly group of people that run the place, and very accommodating. The only thing I'm having difficulty with so far, so I'm going to look into places in the future, is a lot of it's my voiceover at the moment, but I want to actually sit and have a good chat with people. But I tend to find, I love being on anything that is media related, social media or television, but so many other people will run away when they see a camera sort of pointed at them. And as they're being so accommodating and allowing me to go in earlier and do the film, I didn't want to put any pressure under anybody, but I think that's one of the places, and when I hopefully do the folk at some point.
I think as long as they've got notice, I think they'd be willing to, Paul, to be honest, especially there, because there's such history to the place, and I think they're proud of the history as well, because obviously by letting you in and other things that it's related to, I think that they would love to come on camera. I think
I find it
good stories with you.
Because I was in Cirencester the other day, and I was with my mum, and they had BBC Points West there, and they had a camera, and me being me, asked, "What's this all about?" Then they said, "Oh, we're interviewing people about Cirencester," and they probably saw my eyes light up with excitement. My mum went round the corner so she wouldn't be on the camera. Yeah.
Oh dear, bless your mum.
But this is quite an interesting one. I'll show this now. This is in the museum now. It's just a mystery. It's not paranormal, but I thought it might be fun to get people in the comments to think what this is for. So this is a this is like a pot, and it was used as an umbrella stand at one point, but nobody actually really truly knows what it was used for. So yeah, any ideas would be good. Because it's very strange to have anything pouring out of it, but the museum don't really know what it was used for, so it's a bit of a mystery to them.
Is that bit there? Sorry, Paul. Is that bit like a lip that opens then?
So it's basically, it's got a lip, and then it's got like the main pot thing, but with the way it's positioned, trying to pour anything out of it would be a real pain to get past all that.
There's a bit on the side, isn't there? You can't see that. You can't see your...
Yeah.
Can't they see my arrow?
No.
Paul has to put his arrow on, doesn't
If you look down the side closest to that...
I don't know if... Can you see my arrow? I don't think anybody can see the arrow, unfortunately. No.
It's the side closest to the radiator. It looks like it's got like a lump coming out of it, as though... I don't know if that's a hollow hole. Is it somewhere where they'd lift it with their hands, that, or...
Well, I mean, we've got here, Patricia thinks it's churn butter. Lorna says, has it got handles? The only real thing that it has is that little lump thing at the side.
Right.
So it has handles. I think it has some handles. So
It has handles.
Yeah. But that's how it is. But it's quite unusual.
It is. Heater. It's gone heater.
I would have gone, that's why I was asking about that side bit, because I thought it looked like a butter churn. But, I mean, I don't know.
It's a clay pot.
It's not that big, though, is it, really?
No, I mean, it would do a very small amount of butter, and if you're mass producing it wouldn't get you very far.
Yeah.
Nanny Lynn's put, it's a clay pot, Paul.
Yeah, I believe it is.
Oh,
Yeah.
is it a clay pot?
Is it a clay pot, Paul?
Do you know you're getting Nanny Lynn in trouble now, you? It's a clay pot, Paul.
It's an interesting piece, anyway. Whatever it is.
I'll stick up for you, Nanny Lynn.
I wonder whether it would have had, like, you know, if it were a fire pit or something, if there would have been another pipe coming into it.
Possibly. I mean, it makes an ideal umbrella stand, I can see, but just one of those sort of things that people sort of scratch their heads about. But it's just kind of in the museum and a bit of a talking piece, really.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
An interesting piece. Very interesting. I'd said toilet.
Yeah. Well, I have also been on Radio Winchcombe recently, and I just got an audio clip from it, and it talks about people's personal experiences, and I found this guest that emailed in quite particularly interesting, and I thought that if people want to, because I'm hoping to eventually, and when I collect these stories, it's not like next week I'm going to put out St. Connet, but to collect them and then at some point in the future add people's personal experiences to the channel as well.
So with the radio station, Paul, how long are you on this? A permanent fixture? Is it something that...
No, well, I went on there because I was doing about the paranormal and about the corner cupboard. I wondered if anybody had any extra stories. I mean, I managed to collect some stories from the customers and the staff whilst I was there, a few extra ones that haven't been printed in books. But I wondered if anybody else listening, because Radio Winchcombe, that's where it broadcasts from, had any stories. But they had people and they were adding more to it of their other paranormal stories. So I'm just interested in collecting. Also, what's really nice to hear people's stories, and I've heard some people now that have contacted me through the YouTube, some personally via email, and other ones that have contacted me and just put something in the comments below. And it's nice, and I think sometimes people actually think, well, I've never told anybody this story.
Yeah, it's nice.
And it's quite nice for people to, that somebody tells them. So I think sometimes people can sort of, particularly if you come from a skeptical background, the whole family is skeptical, and then your friends are skeptical. Yeah. There's that fear of telling the stories as well.
There is. There's a lot of people, isn't there, though, Paul, out there that they hold these stories in, even if they see something or hear something, whatever, they don't say it to loved ones or friends because they just look at them as though they've in cuckoo land. They don't,
Exactly. I was just thinking that was something to do with some of these stories, but it wasn't. So yeah, I wasn't being rude then.
That's okay. Chris has put, who's more attractive, the vessel or the spirit's husband? And then he's put a David Divant joke stars.
Very good. But yeah, I mean, I was impressed by this person's stories, and this is just audio, so you just see my happy smiling face in the radio studio.
That's
and I thought
okay.
I'd play it now.
From Halling, thanks for going to the trouble of sending this in. Saying, Phil and Paul, I lost my father in 2011, but he's not gone. His presence is still very much here and felt on a regular basis. These are not in any particular order, okay. A couple of years ago, Malcolm said, I was sitting in my kitchen working on my laptop all alone, as usual. My neighbours had gone to work, so their house was empty and there was no one around at all. Suddenly, without any notice, his box of batteries, 2.5 to 3 kilograms in weight, flew off the top of his cupboard and landed near the cooker, some 8 feet away. Everything on top of the box ended up on the floor, but nothing else on the cupboards was touched. So that's incident number 1. Malcolm said his father passed away in 2011. Not long after his father had passed, he had a lovely photo of him framed and put up on the wall by his TV. He sat there all day without any issues and was clearly visible whilst looking at the telly. One day, it was a lovely sunny day, so he had all the doors open as usual. Went outside for one reason or another, maybe to feed the birds or something. When he came back in, the photo had disappeared from the wall. He looked around thinking it had fallen, but the fixing screw was still there. He then found it face down under the kitchen table, undamaged, no broken glass, nothing. He put it back up on the wall, and the following morning when he came down, he found it placed on the table, face down and undamaged, and he lives alone.
Incredible stuff. And thank you for that. That's great hearing that. It's great hearing these stories from people.
I'm getting shivers at my spine. This is number 3 from Malcolm. When I was about 3 or 4, he had an experience, he says, that can't be explained. Fancy remembering something that happened at 3 or 4. During the early hours of the morning, he woke up floating above his bed. The next memory he had was looking through the skylight down at himself asleep in his own bed. His room was the attic. After a few minutes or so, he heard his mother shouting for him to get up. Again and again she shouted, and eventually came upstairs really angry. He was still looking through the skylight, looking in from outside. He saw her, I'm getting shivers again. He says, I saw her reach my bed and pull the covers off, but couldn't wake me. So he was in there, he could see himself. She started shaking me. With that, I was, in inverted commas, he said, sucked back into my usual self, waking to a hug and some tears. Apparently I'd turned blue and wasn't breathing. Wow, that sounds like an NDE, a near-death experience.
It does. So I thought that I'd share that rather than me talking as I'm talking anyway. But I was just impressed, particularly the last story. I thought that was, and Phil Bird, the presenter, he was definitely getting the shivers as well.
Yeah, I mean, though people say, well, at 3-year-old you won't, but I think it depends on the 3-year-old, because some 3-year-olds are very young for their age. Some 3-year-olds are very, very forward for their age. And
do you know what it could be though? I mean, he might have been slightly older. He might have had this memory, and he's later in life, if he says to his mum, "Do you remember that night when I was little and you came in the room and you couldn't wake me and I'd gone blue?" And it's remember how old they were, and she might have said, "Oh, you were 3." They might have been 4. You know what I mean?
They might have been a little bit older. Yeah.
You know.
Exactly.
But no, wow, what a memory to have, though.
Yeah, but quite frightening. It's not the first time I've heard people having out-of-body experiences. And then my dad had one when he was just in bed and saw himself looking down. And it happened to somebody I was at school with, one of my friends. He was playing basketball, and he was just overtired and fatigued, and basically saw himself from a distance at one point, which is really such. I don't think it was like a near-death experience, but I think sometimes when you're just totally overwhelmed and exhausted, you can go. And this was like during a competition match. Yeah, I just had. I just seen going back now. Leah says Winnie the Pooh's honeypot. Yeah, I think that could be. It was definitely interesting. Maybe it was an oil lamp. So yeah, but it's nice to sort of speculate what this possibly could have been. Anyway.
Do you know, it is nice to speculate what that is. I know, where's Claire? Claire's got? I know Kelly's been putting. She's been having loud noises upstairs, tapping noises on the side. All of a sudden, freezing cold. Claire put a question in. I can't find it now. But about the bat, while I'm finding it, the battery's been thrown though. I can't find it, Claire. The battery's been thrown and the photo being moved. You hear a lot. I mean, there's quite a lot of people that do have that kind of phenomenon where they've sat with a back to something and it's just like come across. For me, I would have asked. I mean, obviously, you couldn't ask the gentleman because he weren't on a phone. But it'd be interesting to know if his dad was a Joker character.
Yes.
You know, like not a mischievous person, but somebody that would have played practical jokes, hence why the photos, the batteries being thrown, or were they relevant to something that his dad what did his dad do? Did his dad work with need batteries for something that he was trying to fix or before he passed away? Was there something to do with the photograph that the dad wanted him to look at a memory to remember? Do you know, it just opens up more questions to more questions, doesn't it?
I think that's brilliant, and it's a shame it wasn't, because that would have been fantastic to watch. Whether I'd have thought that at the time, I don't know, but that's fantastic to have asked that. So I think so. I mean, sometimes people might also just be trying to get their attention in the best possible
It
way.
could be if they're being, if they're not picking up on little signs. It's like, here's a big sign, I'm here. Yeah.
Because I always remember talking to a medium, and he would go and help clear haunted houses. And he was being asked, why, ghosts make noise and things like that, and said, well, if you were trapped in a room, and you were calling out, nobody was hearing you, what would you start doing? And he said, I'd start banging on things. So that's probably why ghosts.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about when you actually go into buildings that may have got history to them, good or bad history, because not every place has got something negative happening to it. Some of them, people have lived happy lives, but they could still come back to that place. And if they are trying to get you're like asking for them to speak, they could be, like I said, trying to speak, and because we're not hearing them, maybe that's what the tapping noise is. It's not to scare us or to do anything. That's just let them know that we're
they're there. Or
that Claire's put, have you ever investigated a place with no paranormal history, Paul, and managed to capture something?
I'm trying to think. I don't know if I have been anywhere, because I think you want to increase your chance of possibly getting something. I mean, when I was doing the panel investigations, there was very little in the way of apps. It was just like recorders, trigger objects, old school Harry Price kind of, with a little bit of extra technology way of doing investigations. And I don't think we ever went anywhere which didn't have anything. And I think it was just literally to increase those chances. But strangely enough, this isn't... I do know somebody who worked in a hotel that was abroad somewhere, not sure where it was, but it's basically a new resort in the middle of nowhere-ish. But they kind of like have their bar all all contained, self-inclusive kind of sort of hotel. And as far as they knew, there was nothing in that area of any history of battles or anything happening. The building didn't use old stone; it was new concrete, new sort of metal, and what they do the buildings in now. And yet they were experiencing paranormal activity there. So it could be the area, it could be some sort of portal or something. But yeah, myself, I've never been to any venue which hasn't been haunted. And but it'd be interesting just to see what would happen. I have a feeling certain apps would pick up things in any venue, but not
For
trying
me,
it. I don't know.
I think for me, even if it's a new build, there's always history to the land. So for me, I think you'll always find some phenomenon going on. Is there anywhere you would love to investigate but haven't had the chance?
Oh, blimey, let's give a good answer to that one.
Or maybe somewhere that you're looking at more in your future, Paul, especially on Paranormal Channel. Maybe somewhere where you could go looking on that.
Eventually haunted hotels, because you could stay there. That would be really good.
Yeah.
I think the Edinburgh Vaults would be quite a fascinating one. Again, that would be really, really
I know
expensive.
with hotels, I think we're allowed to set chain at hotels, aren't we? I think it's Best Western. If you look on theirs, they actually list the haunted location. If it's haunted, they'll
that's good.
Haunted history. And there's one near us, isn't there? Which is we've done a few times, which is Mosborough Hall. And we've stayed in the actual haunted room overnight, and they don't mind you going round. They even normally open function room up for us.
Depends who it's for, though.
Yeah, not for the opened function room, so we could go in there and investigate in there.
We've been to two, because with the other one that we went to when we went with Chelsea to another one, and that worked Best Western. Though I'll find out what that one were, Paul. But yeah, it really it's some
It's the castles.
Yeah. But I'll find it. But that one where we went, that one, they opened church up. There were a wedding in it next day, and they opened church up for us, and we could go into church while wedding party. We're going next day. We're all in there with doodahs and everything, and got all the equipment out, and wedding parties in next building to us as we're doing an investigation in church. But yeah,
well, that's not only one. We did the one in Repton with Claire.
We did,
with Claire,
that were a nice one in Repton as well, Paul. That were nice to do. Lovely staff were brilliant in all of them.
I think one of the things which I'd love to do as well, because I really genuinely like hearing people's experiences. And Neil Story, who was on in December, he talked about Bram Stoker and Dracula and Bram Stoker's life. And, he was just sort of casually mentioning about, just kind of sometimes just meeting up and just having a glass of port and just chatting about spooky stories. And I think just doing stuff like that I find really good. So maybe I could film port and a chat or something. That's a rubbish. It's a working title. It's a rubbish title.
Yeah.
the haunted pint or something like that.
Hey dear. Nanny Lynn lost 2 necklaces, and 2 necklaces broke. All 4 relating to Sean. Any ideas?
So they were kind of broken afterwards.
I think 4 necklaces in total. She's lost 2, and 2 broke. So there's 4 altogether.
For me,
I know Lynn is a wonderful spiritual lady, so I think probably the best thing would be to sit down, kind of get yourself into a meditative type state and set that intention to Sean and ask for the reason to be shown. It might come back as an idea. There is, if you ask your subconscious mind a question enough times, then you'll get an answer. So maybe it's just sort of has a look, quote my minute, get to that meditative type state and ask it, and then there might be just an inspired idea, a dream come, something. That's what I would suggest anyway.
I'm going to say exactly the same, Paul. I'm going to say exactly the same. It's a message trying to get through to you, and because for me, it's like you say, it's exactly what Paul says, Nanny Lynn. Exactly what Paul says. And then Nanny Lynn's put, I keep hearing my doorbell ring at least 4 or 5 times now, but no one's there. Plus Bella would have barked. And Soldiers replied, Lynn, as far as hearing the doorbell, Google exploding head syndrome. It may explain some things. Interesting. We'll have a look at that. Even Paul and Nanny Lynn's put, really, thank you, Soldier.
I think it was brought up in the Dream Lady when she was on. I'm sure that was mentioned. Soldier mentioned that the exploding head syndrome, where you kind of hear bangs and knocks. Really interesting. I mean, I've kind of had things similar to that. Not really, really loud, but yeah.
Could that happen if you were in a stressful situation, or
I think it's more going to sleep, because I do get hypnagogic and hypnopompic imagery. So that is just when I come around from sleep. Sometimes I'll get like some images. there tend to be weird patterns and things like that, like spirograph patterns. Not all the time, I just go through stages of it, and it tends to be when I'm sort of going into sleep, coming out of sleep, so it could be something to do with that. But the soldier has it. Be interesting to know when he gets these experiences.
Could call this thing Spirit and Spirits.
Well, Leah's put rubbish name, Paul. And she's
It's
interview
working.
of Spirit crying laughing faces.
It's working title.
Spirit with Spirits.
Spirit with Spirits.
Can I have that, John?
Yeah.
You can have that one. Spirits with Spirit.
Yeah.
Instantly,
I like it.
Instead of interview with a vampire.
No, yeah, that would be, yeah, that could be, couldn't it? Yeah.
Oh dear.
He does dress up very gothic, Neil Story, and yeah, I think that's basically his everyday kind of gear. He kind of dresses up with, he looks like a Victorian gentleman. So yeah, it would be interview with a vampire there.
Need to investigate Tankersley Manor. It's reported to have activity. Have a look at get prices, Claire, and we'll have a look when you're better. I'll have to get Michael into dog sit for us though.
Your Papa's feeling better as well, Claire.
Yeah. It's put when I told you I will quickly jump off track a minute. When I am dropping off to sleep normally, Paul.
Okay, so that seems yeah.
And Sarah's put, when I fall asleep, I hear my voice being called, hear bangs, and sometimes in the darkness of my eyes being closed, it's like I can see faces.
But I'm scared. Because, at night...
You've missed my great humour.
At night, when I'm trying to fall to sleep, I can hear voices. But, I mean, I can make out what it says. It's like, John, I need a glass of water.
Oh dear. And a name being called as well. Wow. It's amazing how your mind works though, isn't it, when it's in that dream, just before dream state comes in and everything.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's great, and I'm currently listening to some hypnosis because I think it's good to also apply hypnosis yourself, and I'm listening to it in the mornings because you're still in that sort of twilight sort of state before and it's a great way of setting yourself up for the rest of the day.
Yeah, it is. But also, it could be spirit trying to communicate with you because your mind's at peace and you're opening up. In Sarah's case, she's hearing a name. Do you know, I think for me, it more goes on your belief system. I think in that sense, I think it's a belief. It's the belief. If you have the belief in spirit, because if you don't, then you're going to find a rational explanation for it. So it's
it's like ultrasound, and the London Underground has lots and lots of ghostly sightings in London Underground, and they say that you've got this ultra low frequency. Is it ultrasound or is it something else? But it's basically really deep low frequencies, and they sort of say they sort of say that it plays with the brain and makes you infrasound. That's it. Well done, John. Makes you see and experience haunted things, but then also thinking maybe it's not just making you hallucinate, it's tapping you into that frequency that it becomes easier to see spirits and ghosts, or maybe tap into place memory.
Oh, I don't know if I mean, this is switching subjects totally now, but there's a place in Liverpool that you might be interested in when you do on your paranormal. Calm down. There's supposed to be a certain road in Liverpool, and it's like time travel.
Oh, yeah, it's a time slip.
Time slip. And it does a time.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've forgotten the name of the road. I will find it out unless John can find it on his phone. But there's been loads of people that have had experiences on this certain road in Liverpool.
Interesting. That'd be really... Because I want to look into other areas of the paranormal and crop circles.
Yeah,
I know
we've been looking into them ourselves, them on watching stuff on them on crop circles.
I'm in the process of having an interview with somebody about that, but then again, it's just, I've got lots of balls in the air.
I know, you've got so many balls in your backbone.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. But hopefully I can catch some more one by one instead of letting it drop and then take a bow.
Alison, but that's where I'm from, Liverpool. Well, Alison, in a minute.
Stop taking Mickey out of her accent, man.
I'm not taking Mickey out of her, Ali. You did it. John's just tried Bold Street in Liverpool.
Time slips.
And it's called. It's on Google. If you just put in the time slips of Bold Street, Liverpool.
Yeah.
An interesting one.
Because there's Painswick very close to Gloucester, and somebody was driving through there and saw somebody working on thatched cottages and thought, this is weird, this is not how I remember it. Yeah. And then suddenly just blinked his eyes a bit and it all turned to normal. But that's the only story that I ever heard about that one.
Is it?
I around here, but I love one of my favourite programmes, and I really wish that it was available to see again, because I've not seen them for years. You can't get them on DVD. It'd be nice if it was available on some streaming services as well, but you just can't seem to get hold of them, apart from some really blurred copies on YouTube and Daily Motion. But The Strange But True, I used to absolutely love those Strange But Trues with Michael Aspel.
We can get them, you know. We'll have a look.
And
on our ding-along.
And they had this family that were travelling through France and come across this place, and it was very strange because it didn't have any windows. It just had shutters, and the food was excellent, so the best, and the bed was like on straw bed, and they just thought it was a really weird novelty place. And on the way back, they thought it was so good and so cheap, you know, compared to everywhere else. We'll call back there on the way back, and they drove and couldn't find it anywhere. And when they got back, 'cause they took photographs, all their films just weren't developed.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like there might be a little tiny bubble of a time slip. But yeah, that really triggered my imagination.
It triggers me ever so much. I've heard of that street in Liverpool. A bookshop turned into an old-fashioned dress shop when they went through the door. Yep. And Alison's put, I live in Stroud, Gloucestershire, back on to Nature Reserve, Paul.
Oh, it's lovely around there.
I love those, Paul. Nanny Lynn. Speckall is good.
Excellent. I'll have to look into these.
You will see there's loads coming up, Paul, for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Have you got any other clips or anything else?
Yeah, I've got. So I thought I'd show. So there's a couple of other things I'll mention as well. What else is here? So I've done. Yeah. So the only other one I've got on here at the moment, I can always download things, is I like, because sometimes you tell whether it's any paranormal field. This is when I interviewed Ken Gerhardt, the cryptozoologist, and he was talking about, because I find that there's a certain look that you get from people when you absolutely, like I'm quite a trustworthy, trust person that trusts people. So I often believe people when I hear them, because I kind of think how I would feel if kind of people doubted my stories.
Exactly.
But sometimes you do get people telling certain stories, and you think there is no way on earth that they're making this up. So I just kind of I thought it was quite an impressive story Ken said. So there's a little 2-minute, 3-minute clip here. Curious to know, because you've spoken to lots of different people, and it's probably one of those questions that there's so many to answer. But has there been sort of like anybody with any of your research speaking to anybody that the story was sort of so compelling by even just the look in their eyes? Because I'm also into the paranormal, so, and you get this look in some people's eyes that they're just not faking it. They've really experienced something quite unusual. Is there anything that springs to mind in the last 5 minutes that we have here?
Oh gosh, yeah, the most dramatic that I can think of. So you referenced a series I used to be on called Monster Quest. In 2009, they sent me to Mexico to investigate accounts of a Mothman type creature. I'm sure your listeners have heard of the Mothman. I don't know if it's a true cryptid, but it's a winged humanoid creature that's been reported in West Virginia. And I've also interviewed eyewitnesses from elsewhere, but the most compelling eyewitness that I've interviewed was a police officer in Mexico named Leonardo Samaniego, who in June of 2004, in the middle of the night, was on patrol and claims that this giant, this winged witch is what he called her, a bruja, a witch with giant black lidless eyes and brown skin, flew through the air and attacked his police car and was like clawing at him through the windshield. And he basically, it was too much. He couldn't handle it and he blacked out. And he was discovered by EMT, ambulance drivers, and fellow police officers a short while later. But anyways, I got to interview him for this particular episode. And this is a pretty tough guy. I mean, he's still on the police force. He works in a really tough neighborhood in southern Monterrey, Mexico, called Guadalupe. And I mean, he was like, and granted, he doesn't speak English, so we had a translator. But just the emotions that he was expressing. And I mean, he broke down. He was weeping. Wow. You know, saying that he still had nightmares about this creature, the eyes, he could still see these big eyes. And this guy definitely experienced something. I mean, it really shook the foundation of his reality. And that was probably of all, I've interviewed a lot of very credible eyewitnesses through the years, people that were very convincing. But this guy, you could see the emotional trauma, the PTSD that he had basically experienced as a result of this encounter. So that was pretty chilling.
Wow.
So yeah, I like it when you get, well, I feel sorry for the people, but you know, when you have somebody who has a experience like that, it kind of gives me no doubt that they've experienced something really bizarre.
I never even thought about PTSD when somebody's had such a experience that they could suffer with PTSD after that.
Yeah. But something like that, I can imagine I probably would after.
Listening to him there, I think I've watched some of his shows, you know. I'm sure we've watched some of his shows, that gentleman's shows.
See, it was on Missing Alaska as well. That was quite a
I've
good
watched.
program.
I've watched a few at Missing Alaskas. I think I'm on about third or fourth episode on Missing Alaska. Yeah. I enjoy all stuff like that.
Yeah, no, it's interesting.
Yeah.
But sorry, carry on.
Sorry, I was just reading what Chris had put. Shell shock.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I'm very interested in getting people's stories about cryptids or Black Panthers, and I've had quite a few people recently, particularly with the Black Panthers in the UK, which I personally think it's from like the late 70s, early 80s when they had the Dangerous Cats, the Dangerous Wild Animals Act, and a lot because they were giving some of these panthers to zoos and these black cats or sometimes leopards and all sorts of things to zoos, but obviously there wasn't an endless amount of zoos and quite a few people had these animals, so they would release them into the wild. And I mean, I heard that, and I do think it is irresponsible to do it because, you know, it kills like livestock of sheep and things. They don't tend to hurt humans, but then somebody was just saying that they absolutely loved their animal and they just could not bring themselves to put them down. And I felt some sympathy for them then at that point.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, I was watching something the other week. I can't remember what I was watching, but it were on about, I mean, going back years and years ago, people were allowed to keep lions and, like you said, big cats without being in a zoo over in this country. Is that what you were on about just now, Paul?
Yes, that was it. Yeah. So they kept them all as pets, and
they didn't want to put them in zoos, that's. I think to be honest, I think I'd have released them.
Yeah, I do have some sympathy, even though it's not responsible. But I can't because some zoos were taking them, but there were quite a lot of people that had these pets, and zoos were going, "No, we're all right, we can't do it." So the other option was pulling it down, and you can imagine that you absolutely love this animal. You know, just be like, you know, putting your pet dog down or something like that.
Yeah. No. I mean, only sightings I've heard of in UK, we're supposed to have got I don't know if it's up in just Scotland, but there is supposed to be sightings of like Bigfoot up in Scotland.
There is. I heard about it recently. There's actually quite. It's on. Oh, I've forgotten the name. Because basically I come across, I can maybe send it through to people, but there was these programs, and it was Brian Cox, the actor, Brian Cox, not the other person, and and they were there's these people camping, and they kind of sort of said they could see this big shadow going past their campsite, and they heard noises and grunting around not by a human, and literally they got up the next day, were terrified, left everything there, and just got down, and their tent never went back to their tent again because they just couldn't.
Yeah. I
There
mean,
is
being in your tent though, and
there's
hearing
also
growling.
because I got one of Ken's books here, the Essential Guide to Loch Ness and Other Aquatic Cryptids.
That's where I want to go.
And there is one. I'm trying to get the page of it, but there is one in Cornwall as well, which is very similar to sort of Nessie. Although Nessie doesn't actually get described with a long neck most of the time.
Yeah.
It's described something else. I'm going to see, because I've been looking up on my phone. I'm going to see if I get the name of it now. More something or other, which again that would be really interesting to do something on.
I'd love to go and camp at the side of Loch Ness.
I don't think you're allowed to.
That's what I'd like to do.
I think you're allowed to do wild camping, aren't you? But there's a guy that actually set up.
There is,
forward
yeah.
of this book.
Yeah.
Where's his name now? Steve Feltham. He basically got a camper van and set up home next to Loch Ness, and he was travelling around in it originally, seeing different parts of Loch Ness, and then it failed its MOT, so he buried the steering wheel to create more space.
I saw a video with him in, I think the same guy, and he, like you say, he's living in this camper van motorhome thing, and he said he like makes things out of driftwood and things like that, and he sells them.
Yeah. Is that who's got the boat, isn't it? And they go out.
His mate's at the other side at Loch, and he's got a boat, and they go out on that boat.
They've got that sonic, Anthony. They've got that sonic thing on boat, aren't they? And they scamp water, and they found they found something, and they're saying it's Nessie. Yeah. And they've gone over, and they've not picked it up since. But
it's Morgua is the which is in this, couldn't find the exact page, but Morgua is the Cornish Nessie.
Cornish.
It makes me think that maybe, because like Nessie's not always seen, that it comes out sometimes and goes round in other areas. So.
When you look at the openings in the rocks, in the crevices underneath, it leads out into the sea. So for me, it's not going to stay in one place. It's if it can get out into ocean, it's gonna. There's
only so much food in one area, isn't there, for it? It's
not
as big as that, so it'll move about.
But no, I'd love to.
But in this poem with Brian Cox, I have to get it up because it's actually quite a good little poem, because it's available for free on streaming services, STV or something like that. And it's for free, this one, but they're also talking about panthers, and they had this one skeptic who reckoned they were seeing otters. People were seeing otters and mistaking it, and I think that's so far-fetched. It's far more far-fetched than panthers being out in the wild, which, I know they exist because I've seen one when I was on a family holiday in Cornwall, which was quite an incredible thing to see.
I'd have pooped myself, honestly. I'd have ran. I'd have literally ran.
Well, it was in the distance. We were going from the Lou to Polperro cliff top walk, and it was my dad actually. He said, "Look at that over there," and it was definitely a big black animal that you would see out in the wild nature, like you see panthers in like zoos and that. And at that age, I just thought, oh, there's a panther over there, because I was so used to seeing them in zoos. I didn't think it was anything strange or unusual at the time. It was just kind of, oh, there's one over there. I think now I would have really kind of been... I was excited at the time, but I think I've been even more excited now and whipped my phone out and tried to get some video footage of it. At the time, it was just those little instant cameras that you wound forward, and probably it would just be a little dot in the background.
Just dot back, yeah.
But it seemed just to be mind its own business. It didn't seem at all threatening, and I haven't heard, and if anybody in the comments knows differently, correct me if I'm wrong, but I've never heard any stories of these cats attacking humans.
No.
Sometimes they do snarl and hiss, But I think the reason why they don't is because it'd be the last resort that they would attack, because they usually go for things like sheep and rabbits, because they can attack a rabbit, kill it, and have it as food and feed it to obviously the cubs and everything. Whereas if they attacked a human, they could kill a human, but it's going to get injured in the process and not be as good at hunting in the future. So I think they tend to just leave humans alone.
If they've been reared by humans, which obviously they've got to have, and animals are intelligent creatures, surely. I don't know whether they're full on eating. They've already got the kill. They've already done the killing. They've had the meal, and that's why they are. It's just a growl and a snarl, as though they're warning you off. You're in my territory. Step back.
Yes.
You know, maybe if
I would step back.
Maybe if they continued going, have a sleep gun so you can put it to sleep. Because I think then you wouldn't know consequences of it of actually going in on some on one at territories. But isn't it funny, in all these years we've not heard of a human being attacked, even when the black cats have been seen on properties. They've never they've always like been end of a garden or walking along a garden wall. They've never actually come close to a human. Not close enough anyway.
They tend to keep their distance.
They do, don't they? Yeah.
I mean, there was one fairly recently that I reported, and it's in Woodchester Park, where they were saying they saw like they described it as a big cat. They didn't say if it was a panther or anything, but they described this big sort of cat, and that was hissing and growling, and that got quite close. But they were taking a really late night walk. And, because they're on this late night walk, they probably got close to territory where it might have been out hunting at night, and you don't usually see humans around there. And I do remember on one programme, I think it was called Mysteries, I think it might have been a BBC programme, I can't remember, where there were these two boys, they were both sons of a vicar, and they said that there was a black panther, and it went up on its hind legs and was hissing at them, and they kind of basically ran away. From the experience, but again, it didn't try to attack them, and it was making itself bigger and warning. But I see soldiers seen a cougar. That's pretty cool.
Soldier said he's seen a cougar. You'll have to message Paul, soldier, about your experience, because you'll not get it in all words on here. But maybe message Paul and let Paul know your story. But what an amazing night it's been. I've enjoyed this catch up, Paul.
No, it has been good to do that, most definitely.
I've
enjoyed it.
We're definitely going to have to do this again in a couple of months, but Alien by default. That's what Alien by default. But just before we do finish, I do want to jump onto a little bit of Paul's other little babies that he's got cooking. Because NLP helps so many people.
Yeah.
And obviously, you guys in chat know, and if you know anybody that needs Paul's help, guidance, advice in anything, whether it's with the hypnotherapy side of it, the NLP side of it, please get in touch with Paul, because he is amazing. He'll look after you 100%. He looks after you. And there's aftercare as well with Paul. It's not just bump. The aftercare comes. So Paul, just a little bit. NLP.
Yes. NLP stands for Neuro-Linguistic Programming. So it's each person you hear about NLP, they have a slightly different way of describing it, but NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, is both an art and a science. So 50% of it is what you're taught, the other 50% is, your own sort of artistic way of doing it. So I kind of probably have it slightly more on a spiritual angle most of the time, but then I can adapt enough to it if people come to me that aren't interested in that sort of thing at all. But the way I describe it is neuro, so it's your neurological system. So it's not just the brain. Some people say how you think, feel in the brain. But, you know, we have neurons going throughout the whole body, and they say the mind and body affect each other. So I think it's a whole neurological system. Linguistic, the language you use, how you communicate. And one of the sayings in NLP is the meaning of communication is the response you get. So sometimes people say, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not understanding you. And I often say, I'm really sorry, I'm just not explaining it well enough, because it's important to realise that, you know, words have magic, and words can change minds as well.
Yeah.
So many people are telling themselves internally and externally that all the things they can't do, rather than all the things that they can do. And it goes much deeper than that. It goes into the language that you use as well, your representational systems, and there's language within that. I won't go too much into detail into that right now. And then we run programs. So we have these programs inside our system, so we don't have to think how to type a shoelace anymore. We can just do it. We don't have to remember driving a car like the very first lesson. We can just get in, and it's what's called automatic pilot. And also as well, if you don't like the computer program, you can change the computer program like a computer. It might sound a bit cold, that, but that's kind of the idea of NLP. I do hypnosis in with NLP as well, so that's something I really enjoyed, and I think the two go together hand in hand really well. And I do past life regressions using hypnosis, and I'm interested in hypnosis in a safe way, but experimenting with the paranormal, because I saw one of the commentators put St. Breville's, and myself and my dear friend Lynn were at St. Breville's, and Lynn had an excellent night. It's going back a few weeks now. Lots of really good hits, but I was one day doing past life regressions with the group of people, but another day actually getting people to tap into the history, the place memory of St. Breville's, and you know, there's quite a lot of collaboration, which was quite interesting. Kind of very similar, without people milling around because of maybe accidents, to what I did in Help My House is Haunted with Barry. So just a little plug, if anybody hasn't seen me on Discovery Plus,
Get watching.
I'm on this Friday at 10 o'clock, and Saturday it's repeated. I'll
Jeez,
move that in there.
Yeah. Cowabunga's put, love this. Paul is fabulous with NLP. I speak from experience. Please do contact him if you need guidance.
That's very nice of you. Thank you, Cowabunga.
Nanny Lynn's put, I second that, Lindsay. And Antoinette, yes, I will let you know. I will send you a message next time we're live. Oh, bless her, she didn't get a notification. So yeah, we've got to do this again, Paul. We need to do these catch-ups more, even if it's just coming on and chit-chatting with us, or when you've got your free time and you're not snowed under, coming on, because everybody enjoys you being on.
Thank you.
So
Thank you,
yeah,
Paul.
we do. We enjoy chatting with you and everything.
I've really enjoyed it tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on and joining us. And we cannot wait to see what's going to be happening in future, because I think it's going to be it's just going to be amazing. That's what's going to be coming on and happening with yourself. So yeah,
hopefully we'll get to meet up again soon.
We will get to meet up soon, even if it's us driving to Gloucester. We will definitely get to meet up soon, and hopefully sort an investigation out.
Amazing.
Maybe an hotel. Look at an hotel and stop at a hotel for night. We'll find a good one to stay at. So yeah, we'll let you know on that one. We'll get
amazing.
To speak to Claire.
Yeah.
She's the hotel lady that sorts the hotels out.
Well, there's so many wonderful things near you as well, and I really have to see Blue John at some point in.
I mean, that's what, 20 minutes from our house. That Blue John, it's about 20 minutes out, 30 minutes from us.
Yeah.
But to get there, you're going through such amazing places. But where Blue John is, you've got Winnick's Pass, and Winnick's Pass has got its own ghost.
Ghost
story.
For a couple that eloped and were killed in
Winnick's Pass.
The night before, it was in an inn bragging about how much money they saved to go and elope at Scotland, and these miners overheard them. And the next day, as they were leaving in, they got
murdered, didn't they?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
wow.
then all the 4 miners that murdered him, they all died of
Some horrible deaths.
horrible
Anyway.
deaths.
And last one, he admitted it on his deathbed. What
Wow.
So yeah, so
Blimey.
you've got 2 stories when you go to that place, Paul. There's
Yeah,
2
absolutely.
stories,
Yeah.
and hills like that.
Yeah.
Luckily, you
it's-
can get there in car halfway up, but
Yeah. And there's a road in Scotland similar to that, which is like that, and they call it the Struggle.
Oh, Claire's put when you coming up, Paul, and then I can also book my NLP. Well,
Oh,
Claire,
thank
you
you,
can
Claire.
message Paul for NLP. You can message him direct for that, and it'll be coming up soon.
Thank you, Claire.
Soon, Claire. So yeah. So well, thank you for joining us, everybody. I'm glad you've all had a great night.
Thank you.
And it's good night from us.
Good night. God bless.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for watching.
And we shall see you all. I'll see you all on Friday, I think, for tarot reading. So take care. Love you loads. Bye.